Hey everybody, I'm Nancie McDermott. Welcome to my kitchen. Welcome to Nancie's Table. Today we're going to make the most wonderful, satisfying thing in the world, plain white rice. Now don't let plain make you think it's not special. It is special, but it's simple. You need two things. You need, for what we're cooking today, long grain white rice, and you need water. That's it. I'm going to add a little bit of salt, depending on where you're cooking, who you're cooking for. In China and Japan and Thailand and much of the world where people live on rice, the rice doesn't have any seasoning. The seasoning comes from all the things that you eat with it. But if you're cooking rice in a Western context, the way that my grandmother cooked it in North Carolina, you're going to add a little bit of salt to the rice and a lot of times adding butter. Today I'm just going to add a little bit of salt. Once you know how to cook it, you can adapt it, you can change it, you can do what you want to do. But let's just get the part that can be a little bit intimidating out of the way, and let's turn you into a person who makes great rice. You need a rice pot, and that is a saucepan. This is a 2-quart saucepan. That's an ideal size, and it might be something that you already have in your kitchen. You want something that has a tight fitting lid because there's a phase where the lid goes on that's really important. So I've got my 2-quart saucepan, my tight fitting lid. I've got 1 cup of rice, long grain rice, and I've got 2 cups of water. So let's go ahead and put the water in, the 2 cups of water. I measured out. And I'm going to go ahead and put in about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You could do a little pinch, up to a teaspoon, depends on how you want it. But like I said, you can leave the salt out and let people salt it to taste. Now all we need is some heat. I'm going to let the water come to a rolling boil and then put the rice in. And once the rice is bubbling away and everything is started, we'll cover it and let the rest of the rice cooking happen while we're waiting, while we're doing other things. So come on over to the stove with me and let's get this thing started. Okay, everybody, time to get cooking. Now you see the water is boiling, no question about it, big bubbles all through, and we're pouring in the rice. Now it slows the boiling down. I want you to stir, stir, stir. Scrape the bottom, don't let anything stick. And now it's the waiting game. Now we wait with the lid off, waiting for the big, bubbling, boiling busyness to return. And you know what they say about a watched pot. Here we are. It's coming. And you see how the bubbles are around the edges. But we want them to move all the way through. When it's really bubbling, no question about it, getting ready to give it another stir. And you want to scrape the bottom. You don't want anything to stick. You want all the rice to cook evenly. So I'm back in, and you notice now, even though I'm stirring it down, it's coming back up. Stir, stir, stir. And now it's time to get that cover on. Lid on, and turn the heat down. Turn the heat down very low. And now off the heat, a 10-minute rest. Okay, friends, we're back. Let's see how the rice did. Remember, we had 1 cup of long grain rice, dry. We had 2 cups of water. I put 2 cups of water in my pot and let it come to a rolling boil, uncovered. I did add a little salt, about a 1/4 teaspoon, but you could leave the salt out or add more. You could add butter or olive oil or some kind of other seasoning oil if you wanted to add a little bit of richness. But cup of rice, 2 cups of boiling water. I stirred it in and let the rice grains come back to a boil, and then I covered it, turned the heat down to low, and cooked it for 17 minutes. Now it's between 15 and 20. If it goes to 18 or 9, if it seems too wet, let it go a little bit longer. If it seems too dry, cut it back to 16. But 17 is a good place to start with. And of course, it can vary. If your rice was harvested, a year ago, it'll be more dry. If it was harvested 2 months ago, it'll have more liquid inside, so it might cook more quickly or be more soft. You can't control any of that. So this is just a good basic way to cook long grain rice that is going to give you a good result every time. Now, a lot of times in traditional Asian cultures, you rinse the rice. Sometimes people soak it. You could put the rice grains in a sieve and run water over it. You could put the rice down in cold water and swish it around and drain it. So the rice can be dry as I did it, or the rice can be soaked or rinsed and then drained out. Either way, that's fine. I wanted to show you the simplest, easiest way that I know to cook a great pot of rice. Okay, let's see what we got here. Let's take off the lid. There's still a little bit of steam coming out. It's all, the grains have puffed up. That was 1 cup of dry rice. I mean, can you believe it? This much dry rice turned into that much cooked rice. It's almost 4 cups here. So I'm going to use my spatula that I use for baking. I'm just going to go around the edges and just lift it up. I'm just scooping it up on the sides and gently turning it over. I want what's on the bottom to come to the top and what's on the top to go to the bottom, so that every grain of rice will be warm and tender and nicely cooked. Isn't that beautiful? So if we weren't ready to eat, I would just leave the lid on and let it sit on the back of the stove for 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. It'll stay nice and warm. Once we're ready to eat, I'm going to serve it out into a serving bowl here and set that out on the table to pass around. I might serve out a portion on one plate and just check it out. I used up all my rice here. I'm going to grab some of this, and that's my nice serving. Let's check and see how it is. You can, of course, use a fork. That's what I grew up with, but I love to eat rice with a spoon, especially if I've got curry or soup or something with a yummy sauce to go with it. Let's just check and see how this is. It's tender. It's perfect. It's delicious. You could stir in fresh herbs. You could season it. It's your rice, but you can cook wonderful rice at home. Check in the show notes for the details. Remember, it was 1 cup of dry rice, dry long grain rice, 2 cups of water, and bring the water to a boil. We stirred in a little bit of salt and the rice, and then we let it come back to a boil, cover it up, turn it down, and let it simmer low for 17 minutes, and then don't peek. Take it off the heat, let it rest for 10. It needs a nap, and then you're ready. And if this is too much for you, 4 cups, I mean, maybe you're saying, well, there's only 2 of us. First of all, I like to have rice left over because it reheats so well. You can make fried rice. Check out my fried rice here on my channel. I've got a great recipe. And you could also do a smaller batch. If you use 3/4 of a cup of rice and 1.5 cups of water, done the same way, you'll get a smaller amount. It'll be just right for 2 people. Okay, that's rice. How to make it simple at home. You can do this. Leave me a note in the comments and let me know how you cook your rice, or if you tried this, how it went. Thank you so much for joining me. Please consider subscribing, and I will hope to see you again here sometime soon at Nancie's Table. We're always cooking something good. Bye now.